One wrong word, one cold look from your husband, and suddenly your whole day is ruined. It's like his mood controls your emotions, and you're constantly trying to keep the peace, feeling that you're in this roller coaster marriage. But what if I told you that this roller coaster marriage that you are on is not actually your marriage? It's your attachment to your husband's emotions. And today I want to tell you how to break that vicious cycle, but also just teach you and help you understand why it's actually an important thing to do in marriage. So before we get to that, if you're new here, my name is Julie and I love to help wives restore and create a joyful marriage by sharing the things that I have learned from being married for over a decade. If you want to know how to create a joyful marriage, then I would like to invite you to press that like and subscribe button, as this also really helps to reach wives who are struggling in the marriages today. When my husband came home from work, cheerful, happy, and just in a very good mood, I would constantly feel happy and cheerful too. I would be in a happy mood as well. But then obviously there's times that our husbands get home from work and they feel grumpy or gloomy and they're actually snapping at you. And the moment when my husband comes home from work and he feels that way, I instantly feel that way too. It instantly affects the way that I felt and how I am with him. I will become grumpy back, snappy back, or either I would actually withdraw. I would justify the fact that I would withdraw because I would say that I don't want his grumpiness rubbing off at me. But the truth is that it actually shouldn't, because you are responsible for your own emotions and how you feel within that time. And withdrawing from our husbands, meaning we're kind of giving them the cold shoulder. And that is not what I'm talking about in this video if I say we have to detach emotionally. So when we withdraw from our husbands, we tend to think a lot. I know you know what I mean. We end up sitting and sulking about the things that has just happened, which is not necessarily a bad thing because we end up self-reflecting and analyzing the situation. I would think to myself, why am I in this roller coaster marriage and why can't we just be happy? And if that's something that you're constantly feeling, constantly thinking about, I want to invite you to my free webinar that I created, A Joyful Marriage, because this will really teach you the fundamentals of letting go of resentment and building on creating a joyful marriage, and also how to fill yourself to pour back into your marriage. I put the link in the description down below for you to have access to. But back to me sitting and sulking. In this, I realized that the only reason why I felt like I'm in a roller coaster marriage and why my marriage felt like this is because of my own emotions. I had attached myself so deeply to how he was feeling that I became dependent on his mood. If he felt happy, I would feel happy. If he felt down, I would feel down. I was attached to his emotions. And that realization was a turning point for me because I realized that I was allowing my emotions to ride alongside his. Scripture tells us in Genesis 2 verse 18 that God created women to be their husband's helpmates. But how can I help my husband if I allowed myself to be constantly dragged down with him? When within his moments of weakness, I was also dragged down. I also became weak and I had no strength to help him or to support him. I had no joy to pour into him because I can't control my own emotions. And that's why emotional detachment in a caring and loving way I see as so important for our marriages. We have to remain steady when our husbands are not. Their emotional state should not dictate our own. And in that way, we can truly be the support that God has called us to be. And that's one of the most important things that I have learned. If I detach myself emotionally, I stay grounded, I'm able to support him, and that creates a better marriage and I become a better wife. So, how do we actually get this right? How do we detach emotionally from our husbands in a loving way and not in a way to push him away? Because that is not what it's about. When I look at life, I see everything as choices. Love is a choice. The way you feel is a choice. The way you're going to react is a choice. Everything is a choice. And we have created within our minds these neural pathways to whatever our husband is feeling, we should feel too. If he doesn't respond to my message the way that I wanted him to respond, I would feel this way, sad, disappointed. But we should recreate that neural pathway to whatever he says or does should not affect myself or my emotions. Because if it affects me in such a bad way that I become sad and disappointed, I cannot support him. I cannot uphold him. I cannot live out the role that God has given to me. Whatever he does and say should not affect you. And what I mean by this, if he says something to you that is hurtful, that is still your choice how you're going to react. Are you going to react out of that hurts, or are you going to react out of your wholeness? And when I say wholeness, I'm going to explain this a little bit later on. But I hope that you can see that it's your choice. Detachment is choosing that his emotions, his words, or even his actions won't affect who you are. If you're someone that struggles with communication in your marriage and taking offense really quickly, I made a great video on that and I highly recommend that you watch that one. But we can and should make a choice every time that a situation occurs on how we are going to feel about it and how we are going to react. So again, I want to take you back to scripture. In Genesis 2 verse 24, this is how I remembered the verse. A man shall leave his mother and father and be joined with his wife, and they shall become one. And I had this picture in my head that me and my husband is one. Whatever he is feeling, I will feel too. The other day, I actually read the scripture again, and I noticed that I actually missed one of the most important words within that whole sentence, because it actually reads that a man shall leave his mother and father and be joined with his wife. They shall become one flesh. Not in spirit, not in soul, not in wholeness, but they shall become one flesh. Therefore, the moment that we leave this earth and we go to heaven, we are no longer bound within marriage, because our flesh stays behind. It goes back to earth where it belongs. But our soul will go to heaven, and our souls are not bound together. So with that being said, I realize that whatever my husband says or do, his actions, his emotions, whenever I feel that I'm not valued enough by him or he says hurtful things to me, it does not affect who I am. Because I am still whole without him. My soul is my own. I'm my own human being. And therefore, no matter what he does, I will still be whole. We are one in flesh, not in soul. And our souls is who we are. Our flesh is just our vessel that we have here on earth that we will leave behind once we get to go to heaven. So, you make a choice. Whatever he is feeling, you don't have to feel that way. You can still be happy. The things that he does should not trigger you, or you should not allow yourself to be triggered by it, because now you know the value that it brings if you can stay happy within your marriage if he is having a bad day. We as wives should uplift our husbands, because how can we restore our husband's sadness if we allow ourselves to be dragged down with them? We need to stay above the emotional roller coaster of being dragged down. Another important scripture that I want to talk about is something that Paul said in Philippians 4 verse 11. For I have learned in whatever state I am, therewith to be content. People are always searching for happiness. Just be happy. And that is just the biggest lie. Because happiness will always come and go. Just be content in every situation. If you can develop this emotion, contentment, above all other emotions, you can have victory in any situation. Whenever my husband comes home from work, grumpy, he had a bad day and he's not on his best behavior, I don't allow it to affect me anymore because I have learned the importance of being there for him. I have realized that our home should be a refuge for him, a place to come and renew his spirits. And I have to be the one to be able to uplift him. That's why at the beginning of this video, I said, it's something that I feel that we need to do. To detach ourselves emotionally, because if we don't, we end up dragging our marriage down with everyone's emotions and moods within the marriage. It creates this roller coaster marriage, not necessarily for our husbands, but for us. We act out towards our husbands when they are not on their best behavior, where actually we could have uplifted and supported them. Therefore, it's so important to practice self-control and self-discipline with your emotions. And I actually realized this with my husband because whenever I felt grumpy or gloomy, my husband would not feel that. He would just completely just stay himself and be happy, and eventually I would get to that point as well. And at first, I think I kind of took offense of that because why is he not feeling or mourning with me when I feel the way that I did? But in fact, it was actually such a healthy thing in our marriage for him to be able to just be constant in who he is and how he felt, even if I don't feel the same way. So stay who you are because you are your soul and you are whole without your husband. Again, I would love to invite you to my free webinar of creating a joyful marriage if you are struggling in your marriage today and you want to restore it to the point where it was when you guys first met. I put the link in the description down below for you to have access to. Thank you so much for watching the video. If you haven't, please press that like and subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next one.